Okay, we're back on record now, 2:31 p.m. and Detective Fogg is still testifying. Detective, earlier, I believe yesterday, you presented one of the body camera footage of Sergeant Brandon Hogan.
Yes, ma'am.
Sergeant Hogan was leading the SWAT team that actually entered the apartment and cleared.
That's correct, yes.
And was he subsequently interviewed by the Public Integrity Unit?
Yes, ma'am.
And you reviewed that interview?
Yes.
The transcript of it?
Yes.
Was Sergeant Hogan specifically asked a question by the interviewer regarding the shooting through the glass door with the blinds and curtains, and whether or not that would be something proper?
Yes, he was asked that question, yes.
Okay, would you read the question asked of Sergeant Hogan and then his response?
Yes. This was part of the interview with Sergeant Hogan that was taken on March the 20th. Question, and not really specific to this situation, but as a SWAT operator, given certain circumstances, if you're in a position where you cannot see into a building or a room because of curtains, blinds, things like that, how as a SWAT operator would you address that situation? And I know it's kind of open-ended. If you can't see in there as a SWAT operator, would you shoot into a window to where you can't see, or a door? Sergeant Hogan's response: no, you all know, you're accountable for every round. If you do not have good target identification, an ID that they are a threat, you cannot shoot. That's basic academy stuff. In regards to shooting through a window and stuff like that, we, even on like patrol or whatever position you may be in, you still cannot fire into an unknown. You don't know what's behind it. You don't know if there's kids, there's whatever, people that aren't even, that aren't supposed to be there, that are friends. You have to have good target identification and to make sure that they are a threat before you can actually put rounds on that person.
Okay, that's all. Now, you discussed, and we listened to the interview yesterday with Detective Cosgrove that was conducted back in March. And did you yourself conduct an interview with Detective Cosgrove?
Yes, ma'am.
And when was that?
That was September the 18th.
And was that interview recorded?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you play that interview at this time?
Yes.
I thought we listened to that one yesterday already. No.
Was this a different one?
No.
Which
There was one with DUI and there was one with...
No, we didn't listen to the second one.
Okay.
The one yesterday was the one conducted in March.
You said it was what day?
September the 18th.
Did we listen to another one that you conducted? Because I never listened to this one.
Tony James. That was with Detective Tony James.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
That was on September the 11th. Tony James.
Okay.
Sorry, the Cosgrove was in January, was March. Do you remember the date?
18th.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. First interview with Cosgrove was March 25th. The interview I conducted with Cosgrove was September the 18th. You're welcome.
Before you start the interview, Detective Fogg, when you listen to your own recording of the interview, and there's maybe a 30-minute period in there that you determine was about things that were not really relevant to the actual events of the shooting.
Yes, ma'am.
So when it reaches that point, are you going to summarize?
Yes, ma'am. At the 40-minute and 30-second mark, I'm going to summarize from that point to the 1 hour and 10-minute mark. I'm just going to summarize what was said. That's some things that occurred after the main focus of this investigation.
Okay, go ahead.
Following with the Attorney General's office, it is September the 18th at 15:25 hours. We're at 1024 Capitol Center Drive in Frankfort, Kentucky. Speaking with Miles Cosgrove, also present is his attorney, Jared Beck, and Assistant Attorney General Barbara Worthy. Detective Cosgrove, can you spell your first and last name for me, please?
Miles Cosgrove, Miles, M-Y-L-E-S, Cosgrove, C-O-S-G-R-O-V-E.
And how long have you been with Little Metro Police Department?
Approximately 15 years.
Okay, on March 13th of 2020, to what unit were you assigned to?
I'm assigned to the criminal intervention unit or narcotics, the narcotics unit.
How long have you been in that position?
4 years maybe.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to go over the events that occurred on the morning of March the 13th, 2020. If you would please start at the location of who was there at the meeting point right before you hit Springfield Drive.
What do you mean with the meeting?
You all met somewhere right in staged up in the 2000 Springfield Drive.
Okay, so it had just finished raining, and I was probably, I may have been the last person pulled in the parking lot. We were behind a liquor store or a church parking lot. I'm not, kind of both right there. So it's either the church parking lot or a liquor store, about 3 to 4 minutes from the location we were going to go.
Who met you there? Who detectives were there?
Mike Campbell, Tony James, John Manley. Correction, Mike Campbell was already at the entrance. He was he had the eye. I'm sorry, I'm kind of nervous. I'm trying to think.
We're trying to make this a more conversation.
All right. I'm thinking of this like a test. So it's myself, Lieutenant Hoover, John Manley, Mike Nobles, and Tony James.
Lieutenant Hoover there?
And Lieutenant Hoover was there, yes.
So, you get there, did you all set out like this is what everybody's goals will be an actual execution of the warrant, or is it just kind of going as you did?
No, we always have been formal.
So what was your role? What was your role going to be when you made executed the warrant?
My role was, I mean, there's no formal order for it. My assignment would be the exterior of the building. Due to those gentlemen already having assignments. So my assignment was the sliding glass door. That was my assignment. The exterior of the house.
Okay. So have you executed warrants with this group of people before?
Yes and no. I've worked with all of these guys for the past 3 years, and I've also worked with them in other aspects. So have I served warrants with all of them? I would say probably yes, but...
Let me phrase it. Have you executed a warrant with this entire group as one unit, where everybody has the same job?
No, absolutely not.
So what time did you arrive? Did you all convoy over and follow each other over there? Or did you all drive kind of just get there when you can type of thing?
Oh, no, absolutely not. When we go to the target location, we are in a convoy. We follow each other to the target house as best we can.
Okay, so what time did you all arrive at Springfield Drive?
I don't know. I mean, I know now. All I know is it's about midnight. I'm not really paying attention to the clock because it's a simultaneous warrant. So I'm really just paying attention to when I'm told to go do the job, if that makes sense.
Who tells you to move from your station point? Who says, listen,
I'm not sure if there was a formal order. I know John.
who's on the radio for what's going on in LA? Somebody's listening to
John and Hoover have had a radio.
someone, either Sergeant Manley or Lieutenant Hoover, they say,
Correct, yes.
Let's go.
Let's go, yep. And Lieutenant Hoover actually rode with me, because you're trying to consolidate, so you have less cars going to your spot. So Hoover is passenger in my vehicle up to the house.
okay, so when you get on scene, where do you park your vehicle in relation to the target park?
Okay, so if you're looking at at that building, there's a dumpster or recycling box or some kind of big trash can thing, which would have been to the right, which was, I don't know distance, but it was a fast walk from that spot to the house.
Okay.
So where you wouldn't be tired or winded, just a reasonable, safe spot out of sight.
Okay, I understand all the figuring part of it, but I'm trying to get details about something before you park.
When you pull up to the house, you always want to try to be inconspicuous. And you want to be able to move your car around. I gotta make sure Hoover can get out. I don't want to be boxed in. It's parked right next to a trash can, which is, it's a parking space. Everybody's a marked person over around. Yes, correct. Correct.
Take your time.
Yes, and once you pull up to your spot, there's no assigned parking for any spot. You just kind of get into a spot.
So does everybody, everybody gets there, parks the car, everybody just goes to the door, or they go together, they all walk up to the doors? That's the group.
We don't necessarily get together, but everybody gets out of your car and your situational awareness, so you're watching people. And then as you walk up to the house, you're still watching people, making sure you got bodies, or making sure everybody is supposed to be there.
Okay, when you're approach to the apartment, do you see any lights on in the apartment?
No, absolutely not.
Any TVs?
No.
Any lights, any signs of activity before you approach?
No, all I saw was just darkness.
So do you remember, I'm not familiar with how the stacks do you remember how the stack was as far as personnel when they approached the door?
No, not exactly.
The best camp.
I can't tell you the stack. I can tell you from once they start knocking on the door, I can tell you who those two people are. John knocking on the door and Mike Nobles with the ring. The other folks in the stack, I can't tell you what.
So his number was actually
my assignment, sorry.
Sergeant Manley was knocking on the door. Was he saying police, search warrant? Was he making any verbal commands, verbal statements?
So I am not in the stack. I am in the.
Did you need to use this climate? Is that a picture?
Now, I haven't seen these pictures since that night. I've seen the news stuff. And seeing that makes me super uncomfortable because I don't want to make a mistake here. And I understand, I only saw that house for that evening. So I will tell you and do the best I can. But you understand, I haven't seen these pictures. And
It was just an offer of an aid to help with your.
I've been calling this kind of like the vestibule, which is the bottom of the stairs.
I call it
breezeway. Okay. So I am at this breezeway because my initial assignment was to watch this door.
Before, just remember, before the door was bridged,
Mm-hmm.
where were you? This way?
No, I'm to your right. I'm at that corner.
Right.
I'm right. So I can see kind of what those guys are doing, but my main focus is still this door because I want to be able to see if a light comes on or if someone peeks through the blinds. I want to be able to see that and communicate what I can see to my people that can't see what I can see.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. So, how long is the staff outside the door approximately? No time's fleeting, but approximately how long are they outside the door knocking, protecting nobles, Sergeant Manley, before
This
no one
guy,
uses
he's talking, he's right on the bus.
I know it's besides that?
I use the word an uncomfortable amount of time. 90 seconds. I feel that we are out there knocking on this door way too long due to the other factors that happened while we were knocking.
Okay, that's okay. I get it. Okay, well, they were knocking. Is there anything else that is kind of unusual or distracting?
So during this knocking, and when I say knocking, this is not we're after making a ton of noise. Not yet. John, and I know now this is John knocking on the door. Someone knocks on the door like a pizza guy, like a normal person would knock on the door.
No, not please stop.
No, absolutely not. No, not to vibrate the house, you know. And then a gentleman from the apartment directly above, the apartment right to the right of the stairwell, to the right of that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, correct. Yes, that person. A person, a man, comes out of that apartment, not out of the apartment, but opens the door and is standing more or less at the door.
Are you seeing him or are you listening to him?
I'm listening to him.
Are you still there?
Yes, yeah, at the end of the station, it's great. Are people talking to this guy? Yes. The only person I hear talking to this guy is Brent, because Brent is loud and that's a confined space, so it amplifies your voice.
About where is he at this point?
But this here, it's way over the cup down.
Where is he at? You're here. He's talking to this guy here. We're saying approximately.
I would say towards that grave, whatever that grave thing is behind that.
Here. He's right here.
In,
Approximately.
Where?
in that, yes, within it, something.
Thank you, sir. That's what's saying, he's right here. I just pointed there.
So logically, and I'm speculating that that's.
Right there.
Yes, so,
Some feedback.
He's known.
I just know that.
All right, go ahead, please.
So there's this conversation, not conversation, there's this, like hostile yelling back and forth between the guy upstairs and Hankins. And there are words said, and I don't know what these words are, and I believe I've never said what the words are. It's like, leave the girl alone, or there's no girl there, or something like that. And I remember hearing the word girl. And now I'm like, okay, we're out of the apartment. We've been told there's a girl that lives here. So that's good for us. So there's a girl that lives in this apartment. Now I can speculate because I'm reading stuff in the news. So just that's all I do. I just hear Brent and this guy having this verbal confrontation back and forth with each other. And then I hear the police knocking. That makes sense. We are knocking on the door, yelling police. Not we. Those guys at that time.
Please,
There's no. Yes and no. I'm sorry.
It's okay, just relax.
Hey,
All right. So
there's no cameras here.
we have John has done the gentle knock on the door. Brett has had this rhetoric between the upstairs guys. Now there is forceful pounding on the door. Then there is forceful pounding on the door with the police, the verbal command, police search warrant. What we always say. And it's loud. You can hear. I know it's loud because I'm like, man, that's loud.
Okay, well, this is going on. You're still standing there looking at the patio door. You see at this point, you see any movement? You see any lights coming on? You see
No, absolutely not. And that's still my sign. That's still my sign. So there is a command. It was a command given to hit the door. I don't know who gave the command. I just hear hit the door. So now, things step up a little bit. Things always step up a little bit when you do these types of movements. So obviously, when the ram hits the door, your attention, no matter how hard you train for this, you are going to look at the noise, if that makes sense to you. Oh, he hit the door. I'm looking at a door that has nothing. You know, your interest kind of goes from one thing to another. Nobles hits the door. maybe 3 times, but Noble's hitting the door. And that's when I realized that Noble's does not have what I call a cover two or a cover person, meaning that Noble's is hitting a door by himself. And Noble's has a 20-plus pound stick of concrete in his hand. And is extraneous, he is physically exerting himself hitting this door. And that's when I say to myself, subconsciously, because I've had training and I've done this a lot, that he needs somebody to protect him because he is working right now, and that is his job to work. So if somebody opens the door or whatever, Nobles just has this tool in his hand and can't do anything to help himself. So when I see that there's a mistake here, I, from this breezeway area, go to where Nobles is at. The door is now open. I don't see much of this opening.
So do you get there and the door is opening, or do you get there a split second before the door actually opens?
No, I got there after the door had already, well, obviously after, because John would have gone in first. So if I got there before the door would open, it would just be run into stuff.
I'm not saying that. You just want to get. My thoughts on that is you're going to get cover Noble's security, give him security. You get there before Noble's makes the last slam on the door. You get there, and he makes the door opens, Noble's retreats. Or is he still saying
I don't know what Nobles did. Nobles hits the door. I am, if I was in that cover two spot, the position I'm in now is not the correct position, because now I'm, 2 steps behind where I should have been if that was my assignment. So I'm slightly behind the 8 ball. Meaning that when someone, the number one person, if they go in that door, they expect me or the person in that assignment to be right behind them. So, due to that little gap right there, and I'm saying little, and this is a little, I perceive this to be a minuscule gap, like a 2-step gap. So, the door is open and I don't really see much due to my angle. I see John go in, I see the door open, I see John go in, and then
That's what that like.
Okay.
So the door opens.
Well, the door doesn't open.
It doesn't open. The door is open.
Yes.
Okay. Please don't split hairs. The door is
I'm
open.
trying to this.
The door is open, or whatever it means. Madeline's on, looking at the door. He's on the left.
I have no, yes, he is, but I don't know that.
You don't see Madeline when you're approaching Nobles. You don't see him at all. You don't know that Madeline's right there.
The way the stick works, I'm still.
I'm just saying, if you could just tell it, if you could just go through it, and then we can go back and ask.
Okay. So to answer your question, I'm sorry, I'm good.
Yeah, you work on it.
So to answer your question, I knew John had knocked on the door. I knew that Nobles was hitting the door. I don't know if they had changed assignments. I don't know.
You're just saying I don't know.
I mean, Madeline could knock on the door, and then some other dude I didn't know could be the number one guy. I don't know. And to me, it doesn't matter. I need to do an assignment that I see. I need to fix an assignment that I see is wrong, and that's what I did. So I don't know who goes in. I mean, I do know who goes in, but I don't know if you're.
I think what he's trying to say, I'm sorry, he's parsing it a little bit harder than he needs to. I think what he's saying is at that moment, he wasn't absolutely certain that was John.
Any decision he made. I'm just trying to get, and he's going to be stressed, but he's going to talk to us. And I don't want to put him in any undue stress.
Right.
Just the devil's in the details of this.
Of course.
It all happens 10, 12, 15 seconds, whatever it happens. And I know.
And this is the important part.
And this is that right? And I don't mean to put any undue stress on you. I apologize if that's the case.
Okay, so the door is open. John goes into the door. I am what I call a second or two behind him. As soon as I am breezeway to door. I'm at the threshold of the door. I am immediately overwhelmed with bright flashes and darkness, and what I describe as a movie reel that's doing that ticking where you see white and black and white and black. I know John is now not where he's supposed to be. There's nobody in front of me. John is now on the ground, or John is below me. And there are still these flashes happening, these vivid white and black flashes. Go ahead, Jack, something.
No, please, go ahead.
So,
I know it's tough. I know it's stressful. Maybe it is easier if you ask him kind of like.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
I was reading from him, he was having trouble getting past certain things. My questions were to kind of
Yeah.
nudge him on to the next.
Get into the next thing.
Just take a minute, just,
Yeah.
there's no rush. If I had an open bottle of water, I'd give you one.
So there are these vivid white lights followed by this darkness. And the room, and I don't see a room, I just see this hall, this tunnel. And it's almost instantaneous that I realize that John is kind of at my feet and he's moving around. And I feel at one point I either step over him or he crawls through my legs, something like that. I know there's somebody below me. And I know that I'm fired because I just sense that I'm fired. And I know I earlier told folks that, it's like a surreal thing. Like if you told me I didn't do something at that time, I believe you. If you told me I did do something, I probably believe you too. So I know John, my friend that I've known for 15 years, has been shot in this confined space, and I know this person is down, and I sense that there's still these gunshots happening due to those bright lights that are just I can't even explain what it is. I've kind of been stuck there because I don't know how else to really explain.
Let's back up. Just take
I think that's.
This is just to get you back kind of in less stressful. Let's back up a little bit more. So, everybody's in the breezeway. Does the team, not specific, but does the team, do they have their flashlights on?
So I've asked myself that question a few times because I know I had a flashlight just prior to I knew I had a flashlight because I used it to, when I say, try to illuminate that crack in that door to see.
You're talking sliding.
The sliding glass door to see if I could see, between the lines or whatever. So I knew at one point I had a flashlight. I know that when I got to that door, there is no light. I see nothing. It is, to me, it is black. The only, what I call light that I see is from these flashes that if you turn the flashlight on, you turn the flashlight off, turn the flashlight on, turn the flashlight on. And that's what I'm seeing when I see those flashes. I'm seeing just the light. I'm seeing light.
Do you remember, and I can't begin to know what you're going through on this, so I can't speak to that. I can't begin to know what you're going through there. So, after John, Sergeant Bradley goes in, I know you may not be able to speak to that. But can you remember, he gets shot at some point. He discharges his weapon, kind of steps out, falls down, something. When you say you're stepping on him or over him, or are you in the doorway? Are you out in the breezeway? Are you a combination of both? Can you speak to it?
I am not in the apartment. I did not make it to what I call the welcome mat. I'm where a person would be knocking on the door if they were to come.
So you never crossed this part right here?
No. If
stepped up or on or over your Sergeant Manley, was he here? Was he here? Can you speak to that?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I want to say I know, but logically it makes sense to me. But I do not know if he went to the left, if he went to the right, if he went behind me, if he did something completely different. I do not know.
Well, you're not looking down at it.
No, actually,
You're
yeah.
right.
I would assume you're still, man, remember, I assume your eyes are fixed on something, I would assume.
Correct, yes.
We're not going to be part of, I should ask this other really good sidetrack. When you were here, did you kind of see Knowles needs assistance or security? Do you have your weapon drawn or your hand on weapon or is it drawn or do you remember? When you moved from over
I mean,
here,
I don't remember, but
when you won that, did you?
I don't remember, but logically, it would not be in Holmstrom.
Some people do it different. You're not the entry person, so you might not have your weapon drawn. So
I don't remember, but normally it would be out. I don't remember.
So, the lights come on, you're having your, you see the lights. What, after you think you fired, can you speak at all to how many rounds you think you fired?
So, can we back up just one second?
Yes.
I think it's important for me to tell you what that. So during this flashing light, I am seeing this human shadow figure. I don't think I've said that, so I just want to say that. So, as to the round count that I was
Come up there, wait a minute. Is this shadow figure down the hall? Close up to the door? Large, small, laying down?
the shadow figure, it's just a human, larger than normal human shadow figure.
You said larger, you mean taller, wider?
It's wider than it should be.
So I know it's,
it's like see a tall person, tall human shape followed by like a rounder shape connected to it.
Like side by side like this?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
That's hard for me to even fathom, but that's what I saw between those.
Let me ask you more about the flashing lights. Were the lights, where were the lights coming? Were they lights in the hallway? Were they up close in your eyes? Were they coming from the side of inside the apartment? Or were they just around you? What context were you seeing the lights?
Those lights to me were encompassing. They are in front of me. It's like it's like you're looking at the sun, and you open your eyes and you look at the sun. It's just this big
Spots.
flashes of big light. I'm not seeing the stars, if that's what you're asking. I'm not seeing over here and stuff like that. I'm seeing big flashes of light. And it sounds, I don't know if it sounds unbelievable, but that's what I'm saying.
Nobody's doing it. You just tell us what happened, your perspective, and that's just what it is. I mean, you're nobody here. There's 4 people here, only one person was there.
exactly.
I've been doing this a long time, but I've never been in a situation like this, so I can't relate. Everybody that was there that evening, every officer involved, experienced it different. There's no right or wrong way to do it, and I'm sure people told you that. You don't need to hear that from me. But that being said, I'm just trying to get some information as best we can. Back up on the human shape or form or whatever however you describe it. Did that shape or that you saw, did they make any actions that you recall? Hands up, hands movement, squat?
That was within
No,
a heartbeat. I am not seeing that kind of detail. I'm seeing, like, I'm trying to understand, so yes, because it would say yes, but I'm not 100% on that. I mean, I try and make some logic out of this and try and put it together, but I would think so, yes. That I believe John is already down when I'm seeing these flashes. Now, I don't know if it's up and down or down, down. I don't So it's convoluted for me too, and I was there and I don't understand some of the stuff.
So you think you fired, you look and speak to how many you fired?
Correct. I've had some time to analyze it, after the fact. And there's other things we can talk about maybe later on in the time. But I am fairly certain. I know that I fired a low amount of rounds. That's how I feel, due to something later on that occurs.
I found any of these type of stories the best type of sequential.
Yes.
From start to finish. That's what I'm trying to.
So, and then,
So if you you step over John, around John, and the next thing you remember is what?
So I have fired, or there is gunfire, and if you told me I didn't fire, I'd sure believe you right now. So the gunfire is over between. I sense that I sense that John is no longer behind, that there's this emptiness, that John is scooted away or something. And I say I see it, but I'm not entirely sure that I actually see John scooting away. But I feel that there's this emptiness, there's this time to go, that John has been moved to safety. And I'm only at this door for 4 seconds. I mean, it's a very short amount of time. Like, I don't, it could be 6, it could be 5, it could be 2. I'm at this doorway for a very short amount of time. And then I leave the doorway.
As you leave, are your senses start to come out of the lights,
So I leave the doorway, the breezeway, and I see a sea of people huddling and tugging, chirping.
you think your good senses come back?
Yes, they're coming back. But go ahead.
As you're going toward leaving that front door, talking to
Yeah.
people, are you hearing any shots going off?
So during this event, I have this I don't even know what word to say. Like, there's this utter muteness happening. Like it's like I'm in a cave of complete, utter silence. So I don't hear anything. When I'm in the breezeway going to the parking lot, I still see these flashes in front. They're not in front of me because I can see people in front of me, and I would not run towards flashing light. That would be asinine. You would think, right?
Are we talking about like back toward the apartment? You're seeing the flash?
No, these flashes are coming from, and I hate to use direction during this stuff, sure, but there is what I'm fairly certain to be flashes of light from the parking lot that are gunfire from the parking lot. Okay. And I hate to say that because it doesn't make sense to me.
But that's
you don't
have to make sense.
Yeah. Not hate to say it, it's just what happened.
Right.
And you're an investigator, you know how things are, but the whole story, as it were, is a bunch of different stories.
Yes,
It's like a puzzle piece. And your puzzle piece is this dude. The whole puzzle is this. We concentrate on this part, like the puzzle, the puzzle you can describe. You're heading toward the people, you kind of get your senses about you. At that time, do you hear or see, maybe gunshots, or they...
There are bright flashes of light to my left, because it's not directly in front of me, and it is definitely not to my right, because I don't remember anything to my right. So the only directions I'm sensing is straight ahead and to my left.
So if that,
No, I have no sound until where we're about to go here in the next paragraph. So I'm in the breezeway going towards the parking lot. I'm seeing these flashes to my left. I'm seeing, I hate to embarrass them, but I'm seeing my Campbell's big dumbass on the ground.
Just tell them what you remember. As best you can. Don't worry about embarrassing anybody.
And I think my Campbell has been shot too, because he's on the ground.
So where did you go, best you can remember, in the parking lot?
after you see Campbell, what do you do?
Those other guys kind of bulldozed over Campbell. And I went to the right of them because they're in a, I don't want to go to the NFL team, to get to safety. So I go to the right of this pile of men, thinking that Campbell has been shot, and thinking, oh shit, there's a lot of problems now. This Campbell's a big dude. So we're talking about.
So you're coming to the right.
So I'm in the right. I'm in the right side of the parking lot, and we didn't talk about this earlier. There's a white car in the parking lot, a white SUV or a minivan or some white freaking car. So I'm in front of this vehicle, but I'm not in front of the vehicle. I'm behind the vehicles that are parked in the parking lot, but in front of this white vehicle thing. That makes sense. John is closer to the white vehicle than I am, because he went to the left, or straight, and I went to the right. So I'm behind cover, and okay, so I'm behind cover, and I go to reload, and that's what I wanted to touch on, or that's what I was going to touch on earlier. So I go to reload, and I have this overwhelming sense of that you shouldn't have reloaded right now, because I don't know if I had because, but I'm like, I shouldn't have reloaded because that magazine was probably full, and I've just dropped a full magazine on the ground, and I've loaded the magazine in the fire.
Okay, where are you within? If you already moved out, it's back there by the breezeway.
No, I'm in cover between the white car and the parked cars.
Okay, let me ask you the detail there. When you went to reload, and I found when you go to the details, it kind of helps you, man. Where did you get your magazine from? Where'd you get your spare magazine?
In my front package.
On your desk?
Yes.
Was your slide locked back? Or was it?
I don't remember if I said that. No, I can't. It was not, because the magazine was in and out. There was no working the slide or anything like that. It was so fast, and that's why I think I messed up, because I should have done an administrative reload. That's what I felt like I should have. That means I should have put that spec magazine, the one that had stuff taken out, back into my box. But I'm under stress. I'm losing. I feel stressed, obviously, and I made a small mistake, and I'm not even gonna call it a mistake. I should report that. I made a small mistake, but then I reloaded the gun. Right or wrong, I did.
Did you, when you got the magazine, did you let it hit the ground like a train, or did you case it and put it in your vest?
No, it's on the ground. I did not have that. Because I don't know where it's at.
Yeah.
It's out there, so.
I'm just trying to get some.
Sure, just trying to be specific details. It's like you said, that always,
And sometimes it jogs memories.
and of the slot, I think he's like, oh, yeah,
So after you reload, you can tell now your senses are starting to come back. Still panic.
No, they are coming back, because I'm also I see my cable there.
If I see Mike come out to say you reloaded, then what happened? Then what you do?
Then I gotta find work. You gotta find work, you can't stay in one spot. I go to John, and I'm sure John was.
Okay, now that I'm going to summarize the next 30 minutes or so. They're working on, Cosgrove says they're working on Sergeant Manley giving first aid. He suggests to them to move Sergeant Manley behind that white car he's talking about. Once Cosgrove makes it to the white car, he does not hear any gunshots or see any flashes. At this point, he's talking, his senses are starting to come back to him. He takes his tourniquet out of his vest, his ballistic vest, and he throws it, Manley's on the ground, he throws it on top of him. Cosgrove is standing at the back of that white vehicle still, watching the right side of the building, right here. At some point, Cosgrove leaves that area and goes and gets his car from this area here, where he originally parked it. And he takes it back to where Manley is. He takes his AR-15, his rifle that has it on duty, out of the trunk of his vehicle. He goes to the glove box and takes some first aid supplies and he throws that on Manley for them to use to first aid. Lieutenant Hoover is having trouble applying the tourniquet on the magazine. At this point, Tony James is helping Hoover tend to Magdalene. Cosgrove, at this time, still says he is helping. He's still covering the building, watching the building. Cosgrove says at some point about this time, he hears someone on the radio, very loud. I can't make out what they're saying, but they're very loud. Shortly after he hears ruckus, when we think that the gate getting ran, a patrolman shows up into his area. They put Magdalene on top of Cosgrove's trunk, and then they start to withdraw him from the area. This is Cosgrove, someone is driving the car, and they're going to have to go past the window to apartment 4. Go back that way. When they first start out, Cosgrove is trying to keep up with the vehicle kind of for security reasons, but within a couple of steps, the car starts going too fast and he can't keep up. So at this point, Cosgrove is back near the area of the white vehicle that he keeps talking about. He's watching the building again. He says at this point he has poor line of sight. He can't see all of this, but he's at the corner of one of the vehicles, the back of one of the vehicles. At this point, he still believes there's only one patrolman on scene. Detective Campbell states he hears someone in the building, not necessarily inside apartment 4, but someone in the building. At this point, Detective Hankinson begins attempting to call the person out. Cosgrove had asked Campbell to, but Campbell apparently was winded. He couldn't get his breath back in. Sometime later, he can't get his time. He sees someone in the breezeway. At this point, he starts understanding there are more officers around him. As the person coming in the breezeway, a K-9 officer begins talking to him and trying to call him out. Cosgrove is he's not really watching what's going on with the subject at this point. He's still watching the building. after the subject comes out, let's turn up to Mr. Walker, after he's taken away, Cosgrove at some point talks to Detective Cole Gibson on the scene for a few minutes. And Cosgrove states after he leaves the scene about 30 minutes after that. Then he leaves to go, he was taken to the LMPD's Internal Affairs office, which is PIU. And that's where we're back at, getting ready to start back. And we're starting back at about the 110 mark, minimum.
Because let's depart from that night. Let's go back to, and we don't know what the accident, we're trying to place some fault or anything. We're trying to figure out, because how many times a year does Louisville LMPD go to the fire range?
Twice. Fall and spring, I think.
Okay, do you do,
Maybe it's 3 times fall, spring.
go to night fire that long ago?
Yes.
You
Some.
You probably do 4, the 2 pistol.
When you do that, it's all one.
Okay, y'all do yours, because we always did our responding separate.
When you do it separate, it's like another 10 minutes.
Well, I don't think separate.
Right, you're talking the same thing.
Separate.
Yeah.
So, you look at each question. Okay. How, and if you could, you don't have to go back to when you were younger, to the academy. But how are you all trained on, not so much use of force, but like when to discharge your weapon? Like,
Well, I can't give you a definition because that's. I would discharge my weapon when my life was in imminent danger, or when somebody else's life is in imminent danger. Those are pretty much the only times that I'm going.
yeah, I didn't mean that way. I maybe didn't phrase myself, articulate it correctly. So, years ago, I went to the academy in 1993. I went to Richmond. Back then, Louisville, so I went to Richmond, but you came on in. Back then, we were taught if we wanted to discharge a firearm, we shoot 2, reassess, and then go to the low rate. You came on what year? What year came on the police department?
05.
2005. So when we went through firearms training at the Louisville Police Academy, back in 2005, how are you all taught? Are you all taught that make sure that you've got, I'm asking you, please correct me if I'm wrong. Are you all taught once you feel that you are justified in using deadly force, which is the use of a firearm is, are you all taught to make sure you have a target, not use it? If you think shots are coming from there, from anywhere, are you all taught to make sure you have a target? And are you taught to shoot the threat stopped? Are you all taught to trained to shoot a certain amount of rounds and reassess? Or I don't know. I'm asking. If you can articulate that.
I'm not comfortable answering that. I'm not an instructor.
Especially in
How do you interpret your training?
If you interpret a threat, you perceive that there is a threat.
I'm not getting to whether we're justified or not. That's not what I'm asking.
Right.
I'm not going there. You did what you thought you needed to do. I'm not going there. And this is a area that I know it might be hard for you to split. I'm just saying. And in general. Okay, let me go back to my training. I was taught two shots, reassess, and then if you need to shoot more, shoot more. Back a few years later, mid-90s, that training was changed.
I would agree. I will agree to you shoot a. I don't even know if I agree to that.
Or were you taught at some point that you're responsible and when an officer, not you, but when an officer discharges a firearm, they're responsible for every round they.
Oh, 100, yes.
Whole purpose.
Yes.
Were you taught to, I don't want to break this down again like I did earlier. When you were trained, were you taught to shoot till the threat is stopped, to
Yes.
reassess?
Correct. Well,
Or were you taught fire two, reassessed, and fire additional rounds if needed?
when
You come up with five.
we're taught to, I don't know about the number thing, I mean, that may be an informal thing.
That was the formal thing in Richmond, that's what it was. It changed, you came on,
I think that's what it's saying,
Yeah.
is that,
Okay, I'm not gonna put a number on it.
if you want, that's fine.
We are taught to neutralize the threat appropriately.
Exactly. And, but then after you stop firing, are you trained to you discharge, you shoot till you think the threat is stopped?
Seriously.
Are you taught to go to the low ready or high ready, reassess the situation, scan for any further threats,
Yes.
and then engage them if needed?
Yes, sir. Because it gives your brain a mental second to.
And that's what I want to make sure. I'm not talking about what happened at night. I'm talking about how you train.
Yes.
That's you, all LPs.
I would agree with that, yes.
And please, if something I just said, that's not correct, please correct me. For 2020, as of March 13th, have you been to the range at all this year? Do you remember?
Oh, shoot, I don't know. I really don't know that.
Not me.
Yes, spring and fall, I don't know.
We always think we are the coldest of the month.
Yeah, so I know fall is always cold because of the AC and the vents, but
You don't see inside?
they just,
we're still running AC, even though it's cold outside.
they're sucking the cold air in. I'm not sure if I went to the range this year. And when you go to the range, it's not and I'm sure you know this, it's
Doesn't really stand
it's
out.
not a memorable event. You go, shoot your, whatever you shoot and you're done, even though it's an 8-hour class, you're there for 3,
Yeah.
It's not a memorable event to us.
When, prior to this event, not range stuff, have you had any formal, like all I got to I say academy, I don't know if you guys go to Richmond at all, or I say Richmond, the DOCJT. Have you taken any additional firearms training, whether it be long gun, shotgun,
So the only,
combat course?
the only thing that I've done with the department, and that would have been, shoot, yeah, I think that, I don't even know, 2000. Oh, wow. At least 3 to 4 years, 5 years ago, I took the SWAT basic class.
And is that taught by Louisville, is that taught by?
That's top of the rules.
So the training standards were probably the same as far as threat assessment, target
Well,
assessment.
that class was not shooting, that class was tactics and scenarios. There's no shooting.
Okay.
So maybe we should, I guess I answered your question.
Oh, no, Barbara?
Have the school advanced course?
Yes, that's part of it. It's called the SWAT basic, SWAT advanced course. But again, there is shooting in SWAT basic or in SWAT advanced, but it's not tactical shooting.
Just like a range.
It's range shooting.
Right.
It's range shooting.
Oh,
Yeah.
We had guys.
I forget that you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
What was it? Was asking about target identification. What is it?
Well, you would identify a threat. I don't know, I can't answer that question because I mean, obviously, if someone is pointing a rifle at you, that is a threat. But if somebody has a knife at you, is that a threat? Yes, it is. But is it a different threat? Yes. So yes, there are ways, I'm not even answering the question, but yes, they teach you to perceive threats during the training, or in the police department.
You think over a shoot or don't shoot scenarios with you.
Correct, yes.
Okay, this is a next question, and you may not be able to, and you may not feel comfortable. Either or and or both. And I know from what you said earlier, I know what the answer probably would be. Were you aware that, not, you may have heard conversations with someone on the news later, that night, were you aware of any actions taken by Detective Hankinson after Sergeant Manley was shot? And up to the point that he was put in Mr. Walker of the department. Were you aware of any of Detective Hankinson's actions in the time?
Well, yes, because he called up to the, maybe I understand.
No, but between the time that Sergeant Manley was shot and the time that Hankinson was calling Mr. Walker out of the subject out of the apartment, were you aware of Detective Hankinson's any of his actions between that time period?
No. The only person I remember is John, the patrolman, Tony James with the gloves, and Hoover putting the tourniquet on and helping me put him on the trunk.
And Mike.
And Mike.
On over. I've seen him, Mike Campbell 2 times.
Right. Yeah, so.
Well, 3 times, because he pulled up your AR-15 long gun,
Right.
and he was winning, so 3 times.
So I did not see, I didn't even thought about that. So no, I didn't see Brent that entire time.
So you were, at the time, you were not aware that Detective Hankinson had discharged his weapon? Fired his weapon?
Oh, correct, yes, no, I thought John and Robert were the only ones, plus whoever else is shot.
But at the time, you didn't know who the other person was?
Correct. That's interesting. Now, that you say that, so later on.
Yeah, later.
It was later.
People talk, and then...
Well, it would have been that night. No, it would have been that time in the parking lot, I believe, because well, maybe that's not true either, because my camera was standing there. I'm thinking maybe they separated it, but how would Cole know that?
Well, don't speculate.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, either you
Yeah.
remember or not.
So no, I didn't know Brent had fired until much later, or until later.
But you knew that John had fired?
Yes.
How did you know?
I knew that there was gunplay in that doorway, in that apartment. And it would make sense, because I'm not shooting, and there's gunfire happening in the apartment. So I logically can deduce that there's gunshots happening from the apartment.
You perceive some of those gunshots at least coming from John.
Correct. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. I think that's what she was saying.
Okay. Yeah. Correct.
This is relevant, it's not really relevant. Actually, it's really relevant. This is back all the way up. When do you think the lights, or the tunnel vision, or whatever you want to call it, when do you think that started? Was it after the shots fired? When you started approaching? I know it's approaching is relative. And that's kind of
Right.
tight.
And I keep saying, as soon as I turn in the doorway, that is immediately what I see is blinding, flashing lights. Immediate. It's not that I'm standing at the doorway and I can see anything else.
And I do,
You know.
and I do realize this is a 4 or 5 second event. So,
I'm glad you do because I can't.
well, this part is
explain it.
because so Is there anything else from that 10 or 15 seconds of the incident? The door being rammed, the shooting, shots fired, you withdrawn. Is there anything else that you may, as we've been talking, that you can remember that might be relevant that we have, has been
So
brought up?
this is not relevant. So God damn, I fucking shit. It's not relevant to you. It's relevant to me because it irritates me. Tony James walks up to the vestibule, or to the breezeway. Tony James is in the breezeway with that tactical ballistic shield, which I've never heard of. We've not discussed a ballistic shield. A ballistic shield is a complex piece of, it's simple. Personally, I think it is simple. It is a very complex tool to use. It's not a tool that one person can use. And that irritates me that Tony James had a tool while we walked up there. But
Does it irritate you that he had it, or does it irritate the fact that he wasn't up front?
it irritated me that I didn't know that we were taking the shield up there.
But apparently you weren't the only one that was surprised when that happened. Not getting any specifics, what other people say about, you're not the first person that said that.
Which makes a lot of sense to me, you know.
Because as you know, it's complicated.
Well, most shows I've seen, like I've been on Frankfurt, I was on Frankfurt for 20 years. This was a horizontal type shield. You hold it like this. Ours are tall, and they're woman carries. They're longer than this one. This was this won't carry this way, so that was unusual when I saw that.
I've never seen that till then. I'm not sure I have seen it, but I've never
seen it.
We don't use them. We don't use them. I mean, do we?
None of Frankfurt, nobody using this for SWAT.
I was gonna say, it's interesting, just when he was telling me about that, I was imagining the one you're talking about.
Yeah, but notice.
That's right.
What do you say is this? You don't have to answer. How many shots did you think he fired?
It's not until much later that I could come up with a number. And that evening, I think I should answer. Because
Did you know? Did you even?
at that evening, I didn't know. It's not until like I was kind of able to decompress it and whatnot, and maybe by seeing some of the things I've seen on the news, it's influenced my thought process. So I think that I fired a very low round count of 4 or less. And that is why I think I felt that urge that I made a mistake in fucking life. Of reloading.
When you reload. Is that like the first moment you thought to yourself, okay, maybe I only shot so many times, you know, I still had live rounds here, I didn't need to reload. Like, is that the kind of first time you really thought about it?
I don't know if it's even a thought. Because when you shoot a firearm, there are many things that happen. It's physical, it's mental, it's visual, and I'm sure it's something in my body said, I should have done that, buddy. I should have not done that.
Just the reload.
Just reloading, yes. And there are other things that I can beat myself up over, but they're just me.
I know how tough all this is. But in the end, I mean, you're not really sure how many shots. I mean, you're just...
No, I wouldn't say...
Which is nothing usual.
Man, I wouldn't think so, yeah.
But that night, I had no idea how many I shot.
But you knew that John was down.
Oh, yes, 100% I knew he was dead.
And you knew where the shot had come from, or where it come from.
I perceived because of those flashes that was directly in front of me. And I've analyzed this 100 times. I freaking dream about it. And I'm thinking to myself that if I'm seeing a flashlight in front of me, then that has to be a gunshot. I don't know what else it could be. And that's what I seeing boom,
Right,
you
yeah.
know. I'm not seeing there's a flash down here, flash over here, and a little flash over here. I'm seeing the sun, followed by darkness, followed by the sun, followed by darkness.
Put it in front of him.
Just encompassing, yeah. And then, like I said there, I think you used the word tunnel vision, and that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this confined space with the flash, you know.
Mr. Baker, do you have anything?
When we're talking about when you're shooting, you're pretty sure, of course, it's all happened really, really quick, right? I mean, you're trying to remember as best you can, but we're talking what, most like 5 seconds. I mean, really, that you're in the doorway.
Yes, very, yes.
Okay. And you're aware that John's shooting, returning fire, he says. Right.
Yes, I know there are gunshots from the person in front of me.
You know someone has
Yes.
fired, right, and John's in front of him,
Yes.
and he's going down.
I don't know if I know that, but I knew that a second later. I know that someone is down, you know, from my sensory.
And that's when you fired, right?
Correct.
And you're doing that because you're trying to protect him and protect yourself, right?
Yes, very much so. Yes.
And you're aiming at where you perceive that threat to be coming from, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, this is our interview with Miles Cosgrove. It is 16:57.
After hearing that interview, are there any questions for Detective Fogg?
Yes, ma'am.
It was established that there was no interior lighting in that vestibule area, right? It was dark, you had no lighting.
That's what he said, yes.
Was there lighting in the general area of the apartment, such as the parking lot or lighting on the ends of the sidewalk?
We didn't address that in the interview,
Oh, God, there's one right
but right there.
there. Well,
Yes,
Okay, in his original interview, he said that he was right behind Avenue, just pretty much instantly. In this one, he says that he was further back, 2 steps, then he was at the door. Once he got into the door, Avenue is already falling back. He doesn't know it's Avenue, because somebody's falling back, and he's below his feet. Then all of a sudden, he sees 4 flashes. Pow, 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 pow. He doesn't say 4, but he sees flashes. He sees what he thinks is a shadow at the far end of something, and then he opens fire. He said that he emptied his clip the first time. This time, he says he is blinded. He only shoots what he thinks is a few times. Then he gets out of there because he feels Mattingly is no longer in his feet. He retreats out of there and gets out a breezeway. But now you can see from the left side of his eye somebody firing into the window, which is Brett, I believe.
he sees lights.
He sees lights, right. But I'm glad you said it. The whole time is what I'm hearing him say is that he's blinded. He's blinded as soon as he makes that turn into the doorway and he sees those lights. Either he sees a shadow of a person or he doesn't. But he's blinded.
He said the shadow both times.
He mentions the shadow both times, but I think he is, in general, from both interviews, he is consistent about when whatever the television or whatever.
See, any types of that?
It's encompassing, that's all they said, it's encompassing, the lights are all around.
So I've never experienced that, so I can't speak specifics. All I can tell you is what he said.
Right.
You know, you hear me asking him multiple times, or since it's coming back. You know, he talks about when he's leaving to go toward the parking lot. He talks about seeing those flashing lights. So doesn't hear anything.
Right.
But he describes those shots when he's leaving as gunshots.
Yeah, at some point it does mention that there thinks they may be gunshots too. That's correct. I'm sorry.
Does he have a history of panic attacks?
I'm sorry?
Does he have a history of panic attacks?
Oh, I don't know that. It's these type of situations, whatever happened that night, everybody responds to it differently. So,
Yeah.
yes,
How often, I mean, how many interviews have you heard during police where they really can't describe what was going on?
you know, I haven't investigated any other police shootings where an officer is shot, but I've interviewed, don't say hundreds, but a lot of people who discharge their firearms. And it's not uncommon to them not to be able to give you a complete recollection from the time they drew the gun to the time they stopped firing. Now, sometimes they're just playing or trying to be evasive. Sometimes they're being the truth. And it's difficult to tell, but I will say it's not common for people to experience that. It's definitely not uncommon to say, from my past, if someone shot another human being 4 or 5 times, even more, that they may think they just shot once. So that's common. Yes?
I've noticed that we've gotten flashing lights multiple times. I noticed when you showed that her body lying on the floor that her phone was right next to her. Could there be any way that she could use her phone flashing lights?
I look back at
Camera,
because if it's dark and that door is open, he sees flashes.
that's the only thing, especially if it's pitch dark.
Well, you know, we can't speak. We can only speculate what happened down the hall. You know, what we do know from people talking, our interviews we've heard too, they open the door, the lights, the hallway's dark.
Yeah.
Everybody says that.
Always dark. Mr. Walker talks about the TV being on in the bedroom, but he says that's the only light on in the house. So we can't speculate on.
Is any of that stuff included in your investigation? Because I would assume that someone had to do a clean sweep and an investigation of that scene. So they would have seen whether the TV was on and made that account. They would have gotten her phone to see if any action had been taken on it. His phone, if any so is that any of that stuff included in any of the things that you all looked at?
I can't speak to, because what we are doing, we're presenting information that was accumulated by multiple people. I can't speak specifically. Now, the scene was processed. We do know that. I don't have that report to say whether the TV was on. If you remember the photo.
But you can't go back to video because also the dining room is on.
Well, but we saw in the video, one video, that they turned the lights on for security purposes. We didn't see anybody turn the TV on.
Do we have any pictures of the TV in the back if it has been shot or anything? Because I know they said they shot into that second room.
Well, the video.
You will hear more about the evidence collection, the bullets and all that from another detective who will be tomorrow.
So you all only included what was provided to you?
No, we did independent interviews.
But as far as like people who process the scene, it's just what they gave you?
Yeah, as far as the scene processing, yes. We became
The
involved.
information they gave you from it?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
It was just the information they would have given you from that is all you know?
Yes.
Have these officers been involved in any of the shootings where they've had not been shot, but like been in a shooting?
I don't
So they would
have.
know how they would react to shootings.
Yeah, I don't know the complete background of all the officers. No. Yes.
Initially, when we first started yesterday, we were told that Cosgrove shot 16 rounds. How was that determined?
You'll hear more about that later.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I said, so tomorrow? Tomorrow. That'll be, you'll have Detective Wolf be addressing that specific issue tomorrow.
And Haskins, whatever his name is, and his 17 shots will be addressed to.
Yeah, all the ballistic stuff, the evidence collected, documented, and analyzed will be presented tomorrow by Detective Wolf. Yes, sir.
I noticed when you said that when you went to the academy, you had training that shoot a couple times, reassess, does the Louisville Police Department have some sort of training like that also?
Well, and I also added on to that interview that our training changed somewhere in the mid-90s later on. You were taught to discharge your firearm until the threat is stopped, then reassess. I was trying to get out of
This new training record, which is being provided.
hold on. I was trying to get out of Detective Cosgrove, how he was training. He just didn't want to address that or could not address that.
But they do have some.
They had that training. Sometime back in the late 90s, Louisville started having their own academy. When I went to the academy, Louisville Police Department still went to Richmond, where I went. Sometime in that time frame, they started training their own officers. But it was to the standards set out in DOCJ2. Yes? Yes, ma'am.
But you said at some point it did change to you shoot until the threat is gone, then reassess?
Yes. Till you perceive the threat is stopped, that's correct.
That's what the Army teaches. We can know ours anytime.
Anything else?
I have one other question. This is totally off the subject. Now that we've gone for all the hard time. Remember the guy with the big SUV that was the first in line in the parking lot and went to get his kid from the upstairs apartment? When did he finally ever leave?
My understanding, he takes an Uber somewhere.
Oh, he did? Oh, so the car didn't go anywhere.
That was part of the scene, so that wouldn't have been released, so he was the scene.
Oh, on the SUV, they showed the, I don't know, it's called the side load, I guess.
Is that what, sorry?
On the SUV of the guy who was upstairs.
Yes.
When the detective was walking around and showing casings, he showed something on the side of the, I guess you step up on it to step into the car or something. Was that like a shot, or was there a casing on it or something?
I don't
That
remember
would be for-
specifically. There was some,
That would be for Detective Wolf tomorrow.
yeah, any type of ballistic stuff. But there was, around that, the stuff they were working on, Sergeant Manning. There was the tourniquet stuff.
Okay.
That was about that issue. I don't know exactly what you were talking about, but any fire bullets or casings, Detective Wolf will address that. Yes.
But yeah.
One last question on what he said. If I understand correctly, it does match up when he said he came out and he was still seeing flashes of light and they were to his left. That would have been in accordance with Hankinson being on that side in front of the window and door, right?
Could have been.
Right.
Could have been. We can't sparse whether it was what he likes to seeing or if he's seeing Detective Hankinson's shots. We can't speak to that.
But the placement would have been up or back.
Yes. There's the crime scene video that you saw.
Yeah, and that's in her bedroom.
That's the television in her bedroom.
I'm still curious. I thought the television in the living room was on.
No. Okay. So we are ready for the next, if we don't have anything else, that we are completed with Detective Fogg's testimony, and we're ready for the next witness. We'll stop the record, we'll go off record right now.